Hi everyone. Today's session we are going to discuss a very important topic when it comes to world history, and that important topic is decolonization in Asia and Africa. Now, when we are talking about decolonization in Asia, of course, we have learned about the decolonization of India in our history, and we talk about it separately in the Indian section. But here we are going to address two important, rather three important, colonies of British, the erstwhile colonies of British. We're going to talk about China. China was not indeed totally colonized. Okay. We're going to talk about Ghana, and we're going to talk about Kenya in this lesson. To begin with, China, today's world's superpower. China today stands second largest country in terms of economy. Contribution to world GDP almost 18%. That's China for you. But let me take you a few years back, let's say 3 decades, 4 decades back. The contribution of China to world GDP was a mere 2%. So in a span of 30 to 40 years, China has become the second largest economy in the world. It is giving a prominent threat to US. It is not allowing US to make a unipolar world. And that's how China stands in front of you, whether we like it or not. But China has indeed showed a great deal of development in a span of very few years. All those who think that I am exaggerating, saying that, oh no, China started its development ever since 1949, when PRC was established and, Mao Zedong came to rule. You guys are wrong. Because when Mao Zedong came to power, China was not thriving. What had happened is that it had just risen from the state of colonization. Mao Zedong had, brought it on a way to stability. But it was the next Chinese leader, Deng Xiaoping, who contributed to this immense development for China. So today we are going to study about China, its history of decolonization, its history of development, and its history that makes it stand today as one of the world's superpower. We don't have to go back to a lot of we don't have to go a lot back, in the timeline. To begin with, let me tell you, China was established by Qin dynasty. Now you're gonna hear about two Qins over here. One is this Qin and one is this Qing. This was there during British colonialism, and this dynasty, 2000 years old, established or resulted in the foundation, ruled China rather. Okay, 2000 years ago, almost approximate. Okay, so its foundations were laid. Chinese were being ruled by that dynasty. But over time, we saw that when this colonization era started, Europeans had started showing interest, a lot of interest in Asia, Asian countries. And that's how the interest went to China as well. If you see, the initial trade was happening between Europe or let's say Britain and China for Chinese porcelain. Trade was happening in Chinese porcelain. Trade was happening in tea and silk. So all this went from China to Britain, and from Britain came silver. Not silk, silver. They were paying in silver. So for every trade done by us, every material given by, not us, by China to Britain, Britain was paying it in silver. That was the situation. Now what happened is, Britain one day thought that this is all leading to an outflux of silver from us. So it's technically that our wealth is going to China. So they devised a way to get back their wealth to themselves. And that way was opium. So British, very cleverly, what they did was they decided that we are going to, sell opium to Chinese people. And as a result of which, they will buy it and we'll get our silver back. Now the situation here was Opium. In Hindi, you call it ganja. Ganja, yes? Ganja, charas ganja. I mean, yeah. So, opium is a drug, and you know the function of drug. It's very addictive. So, in a span of a few years, we saw that the entire Chinese population was addicted to opium. And how were the British able to, export so much of opium? That was because of Bengal. India was already a colony of Bengal in the 19th century. And British made us, of course, 18th century, 19th century, and of course, 20th century. British made us, grow opium in Bengal. And this opium was then exported to China. All right. So this is how, British, they put their foot in China. But even before British, there were various European powers who had their interest in China. This I've already told you. We're going to study about China, Ghana, and Kenya. This is not Chin, this is Qing with a G. So initially, Qing dynasty ruled in China. Now, I told you so many Western powers had their interest in China. One of these Western powers was Portuguese in Macau. Dutch, they had their base in Formosa, and British had their base in Canton. All right. So all of them had already set their base. Okay. And which is why I told you that China was not totally colonized. It was partial colonization that you saw over here. Partial, or, what else can we say? We say in parts colonization was done. All right. See, write down Qing dynasty was ruling, Qing dynasty. Manchus. Okay. What happened is, after that, I already told you the theme of opium, that, British started exporting opium to China, and people there were addicted to opium. In that very scene, they took advantage of the situation, and they got hold of Nanjing. They set their base in Nanjing. But only after they fought the Opium Wars. So this Opium War happened between China and Britain, where Britain actually forced China to hand over Hong Kong and grant trade facilities to it. And that's how British got their base in China, followed by the other Western powers. All right. So this was the origin of colonization in China. But this colonization did not go down well with the people of China. They were not happy with the intrusion of, foreign powers in the country. So what they did was they started a rebellion. And you will see sooner or later, 1850, you have a civil war within the country. Before that, let's see how the opium imports into China looked like. From 1650 to 1880. Look at the number, 1650. Nearly any opium export there from British. But look at this. 1880 is what I'm talking about over here. 6,500 tons. Import. Not tons. Tons is over there. Yeah, tons, right. Tons. 6,500 tons of opium. Sorry, I'm just trying to interpret the graph. But yes, 6,500 tons of opium exported by Britain, imported into China. Merely in the year 1880. That is how opium war, that is how they wanted to, what do we say? Drug them, intoxicate them. All right. Well, but this did not go down well with the local population, and that is what resulted into a civil war in China itself. Civil war from 1850 to 1864 in the form of Taiping Rebellion. Taiping Rebellion is said to be a religious and political reform movement in China, where people were unhappy with the intrusion of foreigners. The people, they were not liking what is happening in their country, and that's what led to Taiping Rebellion. Taiping Tianguo was formed by Huang Zhuoquan It was against Qing dynasty. So there's a story that, you know, Hong, he used to dream about himself fighting a devil. And that devil was the Qing dynasty ruler. I mean, the history says this, that, you know, he used to dream about himself fighting against this devil, and, you know, he was sick for a very long time. This could be under the effect of opium only, that he was imagining so many things. Anything could have been possible. So this is being said about his rebellion, and I mean, this is being said about Hong Xiaquan, okay? Though, you know, and then, you know, of course, when he got to his senses, he stepped into the world, he formed a rebellion. He said that, you know, he's the son of God, he's the representative of God, and God has sent him to remove all the, you know, domination, the devil in the form of Manchu ruler from earth. So he led a rebellion, a powerful religious and political rebellion, and he was immensely influenced by Christian beliefs during this time. Any which ways, this rebellion ended with the Treaty of Nanjing. Treaty of Nanjing was signed. Nanjing was seized for a decade by Hong. Okay. And at this very time, there were regional rulers who said, now we also want our independence from the Manchu dynasty altogether, from the Manchu rulers altogether. Because we feel that we'll be able to rule ourselves, you know, self-govern ourselves, and the Manchu ruler is more or less, you know, a burden on us. Okay. That was Taiping Rebellion. Another rebellion came in the year 1894. Sorry, 1898, not 94, 1898. That was Boxer Rebellion. See, before Boxer Rebellion, what had happened is 1894-95, we saw Sino-Japan war. Japanese, they entered China, they invaded China, okay, and they defeated Chinese. After that, they started, you know, encroaching about Chinese properties, their land, their, you know, states, everything. So people were protesting against this foreign encroachment, okay? People were, you know, they were not enjoying how Japan had stepped into their country and was trying to, you know, take over the land. So protests started, but these protests were subdued by foreign army, that's the Japanese army, who then, you know, dictated the terms of settlement after the rebellion, okay? As a result of this, Manchu rulers had to pay a huge sum for the damage that was caused to the property of these Japanese, the foreigners, okay? And there were so many people who were moving out to Western countries after this. There were a lot of people who were moving out from China. Okay, they were moving to Western countries because they were not enjoying what was happening in China. And of course, globalization and, you know, exposure to so many lands, wide lands, okay, far and wide, it had made these people also go and get some Western education. And that Western education got themselves to another fight, give themselves the willpower to fight against these external forces. Among them, among these students, among these people who went out to study was Sun Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen, he was the doctor of medicine, he studied medicine, and Sun Yat-sen, he came to China, he came back to China, he demanded for reforms in China. And Sun Yat-sen, he also formed the Nationalist Party in China. This is the Boxer Rebellion led against Japanese. Sun Yat-sen, he formed the Nationalist Party in China. Now see, what happened is, after this Japanese invasion and, you know, the entry of the entry of these West-educated people to China, things were up for a greater fight. And among that greater fight comes the revolution of 1911. 1911, the government called a National Assembly. This is the government, that's the Manchu government, okay? They called, they responded to the calls of radicals, and they called a National Assembly, and they said, you know, okay, we are ready to give you concession, okay? We can allow you to form your constitutional government. You can settle in there, and, you know, you can rule in that particular area. But the supporters, they were not willing to compromise with the Manchu people. They were not willing to compromise with the Manchu autocracy. And thus in 1911, the supporters of Sun Yat-sen, they revolted against the Manchus. Okay? And they captured Nanking, made Nanking their provisional capital. Okay, so of their area, their rule or their kingdom, they made Nanking the capital. Okay, a lot of things were happening in China. Nothing was going in the favor of monarchy. The Manchu dynasty was already in a threat. So 1912, we also saw that the Manchu king, he abdicated the throne. He did not sit on the throne. He gave up the position of king, and that is what led to the end of monarchy in China. Sun Yat-sen, Yuan Shikai. So that's what led to the end of monarchy for the time being in China. And when he abdicated the throne, this party, which was only in Canton earlier with the capital in Nanking, now had spread to entire China, was gradually spreading to entire China. Later on, Sun Yat-sen, he said that, Yuan Shikai, he can be a better ruler. So Sun Yat-sen, he resigned from his position of the leader of the republic, and Yuan Shikai, he became the leader. But Yuan Shikai was yet another military dictator whose ideology was to take foreign help, was to include foreigners in the country, and was to restore monarchy. People were observing this. People did not like this. Even, Sun Yat-sen, he felt that, there was no point I gave up my power, my position to him, because he's doing the same thing which we revolted against. So it's, we will back to step one. We'll be back to first step of the ladder. Okay? So he was a military dictator. He wanted to reestablish monarchy, but things calmed down when he died in a few years in 1960. Death of Yuan Shikai brought Sun Yat-sen to power once again, but before he could assert anything, Japanese people laid claims on China, and this was the situation of World War I. Let me tell you, during World War I, Japan was with Britain and France. Okay, and Japan laid out its 21 demands during World War I. Okay. 21 demands in China, in these 21 demands, there were territories of Germany, there were territories of China, which Japan wanted to take in control of itself. Okay? Japan had decided through this 21 demand that we will make China our protectorate. That is what they wanted. All right? Through Versailles Treaty, of course, Shantung province was given to Japan, but Japan wasn't satisfied. And which you see that before in 1937 they start invading Manchuria. All right, so Japanese claims were also there here being laid out. Okay, among all this, World War I situation did not really help the nationalist struggle, the struggles of the Republicans in China. Okay, after that got over, now the fate of China was in the hand of KMT party, the Kuomintang party. Okay, it was formed by Sun Yat-sen. It was also called National People's Party. Okay, the only problem with this party was that it was restricted to Canton only. The immediate power was restricted to Canton only. We still had some British settlers, we still had some European settlers, and we still had Japan also at this particular time. All right, so there was a lot of things, and Sun Yat-sen's power was very limited. Okay, limited to Canton only. But he definitely wanted to reorganize KMT with the help of Russians. Okay, so there was this Russian dictator called Michael Borodin. The Russian dictator Michael Borodin, what he did was sorry, not Russian dictator, Russian diplomat, not dictator. So Michael Borodin, he trained the people in KMT party, the soldiers in KMT. He trained the people, he organized the KMT party. All right. The members in KMT party had become more disciplined through the training of Michael Borodin. So he played a very big role in organizing the party, or rather reorganizing it and bringing it to the front of what parties look like nowadays. All right. What he also did was, after his reorganization, membership was also open to communists as well. See, because Russia was here and Russia had communism. So membership was laid open to communists as well. Okay, but the only condition was that you enter a KMT party, you have to stick to KMT principles. You have to abide by KMT principles. If you want to jump into our party, abide by it, else, you can stay out of it. So that was the condition laid on the entry of communists into the KMT party. Nationalism, democracy, and people's livelihood. These were the three ideals that Sun Yat-sen wanted to achieve. But he died in 1935 and couldn't achieve much of these three principles which he was working for. Okay, so death of Sun Yat-sen, and when he died, China was not in a very beautiful condition, to move ahead. And that's when came the next ruler, Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek became the leader of KMT party, of course, after Sun Yat-sen's death. Okay, he had taken his military education from Tokyo. He got a military training from Russia as well. He observed Russian troops and he got a military training from there. Okay, Soviet Russia at this time was also trying to gain friendship with China, partly because it wanted China to be its ally in the wider picture. So Russia, it helped KMT. All right, but the thing is, Kai-shek was not a communist. And he was not liking how now communism was dominating KMT, or communism was, infiltrating into the pure form of KMT that's there. All right. So, Kai-shek, he later decided to, clear KMT of these communists. Okay. See, all the people who were pro-communist, they set up their nationalist party, the Communist Nationalist Party. Okay, and the Communist Nationalist Party, they set up a parallel government at Hankow and captured Nanking also. Kai-shek was getting enraged by what was happening. What were the communists doing? Okay, so he started the purification movement, and in this purification, a lot of communists were massacred. Okay, a lot of them died. Okay, you'll see that in the year 1927, he was so enraged with communism itself that he cut off ties with Russia. Okay, and set up a nationalist government at Nanking. In the year 1930 to 34, from the year 1930 to 34, there were 5 expeditions against communists. But you will see at this time, Mao Zedong became the leader of Communist Party. Now, Mao Zedong, he was a very powerful ruler, and he was seeing that Chiang Kai-shek is on his mission to erase us. So they took, they settled took shelter in Hunan and Kyansi provinces. Okay, that's where Mao Zedong formed the Red Army, the famous Red Army. All right, but one thing Mao Zedong realized is that there is no point hiding from these people, because one day or the other we'll have to fight, and as it is, if we are hiding, we are not safe from whatever they are doing. So Mao Zedong, he decided that we have to evade through these through their forces, through their barriers. And that's the only way to survive. And that's how he started a 6,000 miles long march, evading the forces there. All right. In this process, a lot of communists died. All right. Eventually, 20,000 communists. This was the number of communists. So eventually, 20,000 communists, they were able to reach the province of Yan'an. Other than that, all had died. All right, but Mao was successfully able to, bring communists to the, at least, save these 20,000 people. Let's see. Because Chiang Kai-shek, he wanted to eliminate communism altogether. He was totally against communism. He was not liberal like Sun Yat-sen. He totally wanted to eliminate communism. Now, by the time this was done, came the year 1937. 1937 was the time when Japan annexed Manchuria. All right, Japan was advancing towards China. So the KMT and communists did not have any option but to be together, fight together against the Japanese forces. And that they did. So they put a strong front against the Japanese forces. They fought against the Japanese forces. You know, they put up a brave front together, unified. But then that was the only time they were unified, because after that you will see that communists had become really very powerful, and they eventually forced KMT to, you know, move away from mainland China into a place called Taiwan. It's an island. China has its claims on Taiwan and in the present day scenario, okay, but they were sent away from mainland China. Okay, that's Mao Zedong for you. Okay, so this was erstwhile Formosa. It was a US protectorate, Taiwan, okay. And that was, you know, after a long fight in 1949, we saw the formation of People's Republic of China with its chairman of the republic as Mao Zedong. All right, that was the year PRC was formed. Now the situation over here, why were communists so easily able to send KMT, you know, to Taiwan? Why were they so successful, and why merely 20,000 people who survived during, 20,000 communists who survived during Chiang Kai-shek's, invasion, his massacre? How were they able to send off these people? The thing over here was that KMT party, it was full of corruption and bribery. All right, it had bankers, it had, you know, upper class elite, it had all these people, and Chiang Kai-shek did not want to offend any of them because he was getting funding from them. So it was full of corruption, it was full of bribery. That was one reason. On the other hand, Communist Party, people were observing Communist Party, they were seeing how, you know, dedicated its people were. How they were very, you know, impressed with the strength and zeal of the people of Communist Party. How they were so organized, how there wasn't even a trace of, you know, what do we say? How there wasn't even a trace of corruption in the party. They were deeply impressed with the Communist Party, and that's how they benched more towards communist ideology. The CPI's troops were, you know, organized, they were orderly, they never looted, they never outraged the modesty of women. And that's how they appealed to people. Okay. Military power also depleted due to Japanese attack. The general military that Chiang Kai-shek had and was enjoying the support of, their power had depleted because they were all fighting a Japanese attack. Whereas the communists were becoming stronger. Even if the number was less, the zeal was more, enthusiasm was more. So they were becoming stronger. And that's what led to the settlement of PRC in China. PRC under Mao Zedong. 1949. After 1949, it was no more a fight for independence or no more a fight for freedom. It was more of a fight for freedom or against freedom from outsiders. It was more of a fight against hunger, against poverty, against skyrocketing inflation. That was what the fight was against. So you will see that immediately after 1949, Mao Zedong uses a lot of trial and error methods to test in China how to, you know, improve agriculture, how to, you know, improve industrialization, how to improve, you know, the worsening economy of the country, how to, you know, get done with this rising inflation, because inflation had skyrocketed. The price was, you know, price of things was very high. You know, China also saw a famine in a span of, you know, next 20 years. China sees a very great famine where, you know, a lot of population dies. So 20 million people die in that famine. That's a very huge number. So there was a lot of destruction, first of all, due to Japanese invasion in China. There was food shortage, the industry was backward, agriculture was inefficient, all right? And inflation was also out of control in China. So Mao decided to begin his trial and error method. He wanted to try anything that could happen in China. He wanted to test what he could do in China so that it could turn out to be, improving the situation of China. He first came up with his agrarian policy, okay, which is also a part of Great Leap Forward, where he said that, all the land that were owned by, elite classes, they would be redistributed among farmers. And farmers will form cooperative farms where they will work together. All right, they will work together and that the agriculture could improve. So land was redistributed among them. Okay, taken from the elites, redistributed to farmers. You'll see in the year 1956, 95% of cooperative farms were formed with joint ownerships. Next, staying true to the socialist ideology or the communist ideology, businesses were nationalized. Every business was nationalized, industries were given into the hands of state. Okay. The Dong also laid out the 5-year plans for more and more development in the country. And at the same time, Russians were also helping the country. Okay. So all of this Russian help and Mao's, 5-year plans, all that helped China to come out of inflation. There was more focus given to small factories. Zedong appeals to people that set up small factories instead of setting up bigger ones. Why small factories? They wanted small factories in such a manner that they were producing tools and weapons so that they could be used in agriculture. Because right now, Mao Zedong knew an agrarian policy would be much beneficial. It could prevent people from going into unemployment. He knew that if we create more and more, if we have more and more farmland, if we have more and more agriculture, inflation could be in control. There would be, maybe we could, start with import, export, and the economy of the country could stabilize itself. So he was more into, setting up smaller factories, removing the larger ones. Okay, but at the same time, you will see that his reforms were being criticized also by a lot of people. After exposure to the Western world, there were a lot of people who had been educated in the technical field. We had a lot of technicians and engineers rising due to industrialization as well. So Mao's party was feeling threatened by these people because they were acting as critics to his party. All right. So Mao decided that, the only way to deal with this problem, you cannot go and effectively eliminate everyone. The only way to deal with this problem was for, an open discussion among people. Open discussion where he called for constructive criticism, where he heard what the people had to say, where he heard their views, their, reviews on his policies. Okay. But he was so upset with what he got. Because people were saying, you should allow, opposition to step in. Your policies are over-centralized. We need more decentralization over here. You are being undemocratic in nature. All these things were, all these allegations were put against Mao Zedong. Okay? So he called off the campaign. And this was called the 100 Flowers campaign in the year 1957. Because Mao had said that, let 100 flowers bloom and 100 schools of thought contend. And that's how he wanted people to, respond to his policies. That's how he encouraged constructive criticism. But that did not go down well with him because he wasn't taking the criticism as constructive criticism. So, yeah, eventually we saw that Mao called off the campaign. Coming to the development, the political development. So we did not, China did not only see economic development, it saw political development also. The 1950 Constitution of China was actually adopted in the year 1954. Okay. Through this constitution, National People's Congress, it had the final authority for legislation. People above 18 could easily vote. Okay. State Council and Chairman of Republic, they were to be elected by the Congress itself. Okay, and State Council chose the Political Bureau, that's Politburo, which took all the important decisions. So instead of having a cabinet, they had this Politburo. Okay. Majority of the times you will see that the elections were dominated by Communist Party itself. And Mao Zedong was ruling till date. Communist Party of China is ruling. Okay, People's Republic of China. All right. This was political development that happened in China, but economic development is more important in China. And I've already discussed it with you a while ago. Giving it a name, we can call it the Great Leap Forward, where people were running their own collective farms. They formed their own local governments also under an elected council. These collective farms and the local governments called communes, in communes, each family received a share of profit. Okay. And emphasis, I told you, was shifted from big industry to small factories, which were to supply, machineries and tools to agriculturalists. Even different public works were taken, building of roads and canals and so on. They were also taken. You will see that this Great Leap Forward, initially it wasn't, very successful. It was because it was giving very slow results. But in the long run, we saw it did come out to be successful. Okay? And Mao Zedong decided that I am going to keep my economy as labor-oriented economy. So that, unemployment at least is avoided. All right. So this is what we see. Labor-oriented economy is looking towards the, the demands and, the needs of the laborers themselves, creating jobs for that particular class. And that is what's going to lead to less unemployment. That is what will give you more money in the market. More money in the hands of people means more money in the market. I'm sure all those who are studying economy, they do understand. I am not proficient in economy, but yeah, all those who are studying economy might understand this. Decisions of Mao. All right. So, yeah, that is why his economy was more or less labor oriented. Another policy brought by him, or not policy, another reform brought him by him was cultural revolution. Not a reform again, but a revolution as a revolution. Mao Zedong and his cultural revolution is called to be very extreme, by the way. So there were a lot of critiques of Mao Zedong's policies. Okay. There was a managerial class also which wanted to push forward industrialization on the Russian model only, and not the model that Zedong is developing. Okay. Whereas Mao Zedong was always trying to keep this great leap on Marxist Leninist model. That was what Mao Zedong was doing. Okay. So, Mao, he had condemned Russian policy for a lot of reasons. He was, there was an ideological difference between the Russians and the the Chinese among these policies, or, the interpretation of Stalin's. And, see, Russia had liberalized itself by this time. If you all go over there, Russia had been more liberal in nature, and it was, deviating from the original policies of Lenin or Stalin. Okay, because Russia was right now involved in a Cold War situation, so it was adjusting its policies for its own benefit right now. And Chinese wanted to stay, in a very traditional line of Marxist in, Leninist policies. So, what Mao did, he was seeing so much criticism from people that he launched a campaign to save his own culture, to save his own country's ideology. Okay? He addressed the masses regarding the same. At the same time, he criticized literary and artistic circles, saying that they are the ones who are spreading wrong knowledge among people. He criticized the bourgeois in universities, saying that you are the ones who is not, who's not understanding the Chinese situation. You are more, trying to bring us on the Russian model. But, and yeah, he also, what he did was he shut down universities and asked students to go to field and observe how the farmer works. Okay? The staunch followers of Mao, they were grouped together. They were sent across the country. They were touring across the country to spread the ideology of Mao, and simultaneously to see, or to counter whoever is, propagating a different ideology. This was the Red Guards. You'll see these red guards had a red color band here, and they had a red color book also that they carried that represented that they are a part of Mao's party. So these red guards, they toured the country, they attacked people, they massacred people. A lot of people died during this time. Okay, 1966, certain leaders of Peking and their journals were attacked for their pro-capitalist views. And the movement was taking an extreme turn where there was a large scale violence committed against people. This violence was also committed against Deng Xiaoping, Liu Xiaoqi, the prominent members of his own party who were not agreeing with his ideologies. A lot of atrocities were committed against them, and seeing all of this, Mao Zedong had to call off the the Cultural Revolution. The extremity of the revolution made him call it off. And 69, that's the end of Cultural Revolution. This is what your book talks about. Okay. This is the point till which you're supposed to understand. But if we go ahead for a few more years, we'll see that number one, again, the impact of Cultural Revolution was not very good. It held up China's economy approximately for the next 9 to 10 years. Okay, it held it back. Mao Zedong, though he did do a lot of good things for China, unifying China, liberating it from foreign clutches, stabilizing the economy of China. He did a lot of good things. At the same time, you will see that he stood up for women also. He said that half of the sky is owned by women themselves. So any arranged marriage, any forced marriage was declared illegal in the year 1950 itself. That is what Mao Zedong did. Did a lot of things, but at the end of the day, he was a dictator, and so was Deng Xiaoping, and so is Xi Jinping. See, the next leader who came, he was more into decentralization. Deng Xiaoping, he did a lot of new things. He came up with special economic zones. Okay, but before that, he was setting up industries, and he was improving agriculture, leading to more decentralization. He allowed the private firms to also invest. He got foreign investment. When SEZ were open. All right, so that's what Deng Xiaoping did. But again, they established themselves. At the end of the day, they established themselves as dictators only. All right, so that was China and its decolonization, and the story of its development, and the story how China is actually have now become the superpower, because China in its ideology is something you should learn from. If you had it in in your lesson, if you had the entire chapter on China in your lesson, I would suggest go read about it, because China, how Deng Xiaoping, and he's called the founder of a modern China. Yeah, because his policies and his steps that he took towards the development of China, it was a mixture of capitalism was also allowed. Capitalist powers were also jumping in. State-owned industries were transferred. Agriculture. See, what happened in Mao Zedong's time was that people now knew that it's all state-owned land. So how are we benefiting? So what Deng Xiaoping did was that he gave the land to farmers on lease. The state did own the land, but the farmers took it on lease. It was just like, they owned the land and they were free to do anything with that land. See, farmers were supposed to pay a particular amount of their crops to the government. Beside that, whatever was left, they could do anything with that, sell it the way they wanted to. So this is what was happening in China. Okay, Deng Xiaoping, the major development that he came up with was allowing the capitalist class, allowing private investments, decentralization, opening of SEZs, and inviting foreign investments into those areas. That has brought China to a place it is right now, the position it is right now, the world's fastest developing economy and the world's fastest developed economy right now. Developing, I can't say, but developed, of course. Okay. Another very beautiful ideology of China, just like we have cooperative societies over here, China had these TEZs, So one of these TEZs was Huawei. It's actually, they started as a small group of people who worked together. They established Huawei, and right now you see Huawei where it is. Okay, so that was China for you. The story of China's development, the story of China's decolonization. Now, next that we talk about is decolonization of Ghana. So the next lecture will focus on Ghana and Kenya all together.